The shadow of injustice, the unyielding resolve of Luis Vargas. It was a sunny day in Los Angeles in 1999 when Luis Vargas walked into the courtroom for sentencing. The air was heavy with finality as the judge handed down a crushing punishment, 55 years to life in prison. Vargas, a 29-year-old father, stood accused of 3 sexual assaults. He had professed his innocence from the very beginning. But the case against Vargas was built on shaky ground. The crime shared a disturbing pattern, and the police concluded that one individual, a predator they called the teardrop rapist, was responsible. Vargas, who had a small tattoo resembling a teardrop, became the prime suspect. Despite his consistent denials and lack of physical evidence, for 16 years, Vargas endured life behind bars. His world was reduced to cold metal bars, a narrow cot, and the weight of a conviction that stripped him of his identity and freedom. The system had labeled him a monster, and he was powerless to prove otherwise. But Vargas held. That hope materialized in the form of the California Innocence Project. In 2015, Vargas sat silently in the courtroom as the judge announced his exoneration. The once daunting walls of the prison system crumbled around him, exposing the fragile foundation of the case that had stolen his freedom. The man who had been branded a criminal for over a decade and a half was enough. As the judge declared Vargas a free man, there was no celebratory outburst from him, just a quiet, profound sense of relief. His only request upon leaving prison was simple: a hamburger shared with his mother. It was a small but meaningful act, a reminder of the humanity that had been denied to him for so long. Vargas was later awarded $886. Luis Vargas's story resonates deeply with those who have seen the American justice system evolve over decades. For a generation that grew up believing in the principles of fairness and due process, his ordeal serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of those ideals. It is a call to action, urging vigilance and accountability in a system that holds the power to determine life and live. As Vargas rebuilds his life, his story remains a powerful testament to resilience. For anyone who has faced hardship, it is a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the Banda Noi Dung Tiang On Viet Ca Chien 5 Hap Dan Quan Hut Nuoi Doc Bang Jong Ven Yen Tin Ka Quan Jong Ven Qua Ca Chien Kich Tin Nan Man Quang Doc Tuet Qua Fong Su Tu Ti Ca Chien Pham Doi Tuong Nu Ne La Nu Sin Song Time I Va Ko Du Tuoi Trin 65 Tuoi ChatGPT to NOI. ChatGPT. A Life Interrupted. The harrowing journey of Daniel Villegas. In the sweltering heat of El Paso, Texas, a tragedy unfolded that would forever alter the life of a teenage boy. It was 1993, and 16-year-old Daniel Villegas had just been accused of a double homicide. The crime was brutal, and the community demanded justice. But what happened next would become a cautionary tale of how justice, when rushed, can transform into tragedy. Daniel, a high school student with no criminal record, went behind that. The courtroom was packed as the jury returned with their verdict. The judge asked Daniel to stand. Time seemed to stop. Then, the words broke the silence. We, the jury, find the defendant, Daniel Villegas, not guilty. The tear. Today, Daniel Villegas is rebuilding his life. He is a father and husband, striving to make up for lost time. His story serves as a sobering reminder of the dangers of coerced confessions and the urgent need for reform in how investigations end. For Americans who have lived through the seismic shifts of the 20th century wars, civil rights movements, And the pursuit of justice, Daniel's story, is a poignant echo of an enduring struggle. It's a tale that underscores the importance of diligence, fairness, and humanity in the face of. As Daniel steps into his new life, his story is not just one of tragedy, but also of resilience and redemption. It is a call to ensure that no child, no matter how young or vulnerable, is ever wrongfully condemned again. For those who value justice, Daniel Villegas's journey is a reminder that a life interrupted, the harrowing journey of Daniel Villegas. In the sweltering heat of El Paso, Texas, a tragedy unfolded that would forever alter the life of a teenage boy. It was 1993, and 16-year-old Daniel Villegas had just been accused of a double homicide. The crime was brutal, and the community demanded justice. But what happened next would become a cautionary tale of how justice, when rushed, can transform into tragedy. Daniel, a high school student with no criminal record, when behind that, the courtroom was packed as the jury returned with their verdict. The judge asked Daniel to stand. Time seemed to stop. Then, the words broke the silence. "We, the jury, find the defendant, Daniel Villegas, not guilty." The tear. Today, Daniel Villegas is rebuilding his life. He is a father and husband, striving to make up for lost time. His story serves as a sobering reminder of the dangers of coerced confessions and the urgent need for reform in how investigations end. For Americans who have lived through the seismic shifts of the 20th century wars, civil rights movements, and the pursuit of justice, Daniel's story is a poignant echo of an enduring struggle. It's a tale that underscores the importance of diligence, fairness, and humanity in the face of. As Daniel steps into his new life, his story is not just one of tragedy, but also of resilience and redemption. It is a call to ensure that no child, no matter how young or vulnerable, is ever wrongfully condemned again. For those who value justice, Daniel Villegas's journey is a reminder that the weight of time, Ricky Jackson's fight for freedom. In the heart of Cleveland, Ohio, on a spring day in 1975, Ricky Jackson's life was forever altered by the words of a 12-year-old boy. Ricky, just 18 years old at the time, was accused of a crime so heinous it shocked the community of brutal murder outside a local store. The evidence against him? A single eyewitness testimony from young Eddie Vernon, a boy who claimed to have seen it all. The jury believed him, and Ricky Jackson was. But there was one problem. Eddie Vernon hadn't seen anything. Pressured by police desperate for a conviction, the boy told a story he thought the adults wanted to hear. That story would condemn Ricky to a life. After 2 years on death row, Ricky's sentence was reduced to life in prison, a small reprieve that did little to soothe the injustice. For nearly 4 decades, Ricky sat in a cell, watching the world change from behind bars. He missed the rise of the digital age, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and the simple pleasures of life outside. His youth withered away, replaced by years of reflecting. The truth began to emerge in 2014, when the now 52-year-old Eddie Vernon came forward. Racked with guilt, he admitted that his testimony had been a lie, coerced by law enforcement. Eddie's confession set in motion the wheels of justice that had stalled for 39 years. Advocacy groups, lawyers, and reporters rallied to Ricky's side, determined to. When Ricky's case returned to court, the evidence was undeniable. He had been framed by a system willing to sacrifice a young man's life for the sake of expedience. The charges against him were dropped. The moment of his exoneration was bittersweet. In the courtroom, the judge's voice was steady but filled with a solemn recognition of the injustice. Mr. Jackson is going to be free to go, he declared. Freedom, however, came at a cost. Ricky's family had aged, and many friends were no longer there to welcome him home. The Cleveland he had left behind was unrecognizable, a city transformed by time and progress. Still, Ricky carried no bitterness. His focus was on rebuilding them. The state of Ohio awarded Ricky $1 million in compensation, and an additional $2.65 million was granted for lost income. But no amount of money could erase the years spent behind bars or the memories of a life interrupted. Ricky's story is not one of revenge but of resilience, a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure and rise again. For those who lived through the tumultuous decades of the late 20th century, Ricky's story is a sobering reminder of the fragility of justice. It speaks to an era when truth was often overshadowed by urgency, and lives like Ricky's became collateral damage in the pursuit. Today, Ricky Jackson is a free man, using his voice to advocate for reform in the justice system. His journey from death row to freedom is a powerful call to action, urging society to prioritize truth and fairness over haste and convenience. It is a story that resonates deeply with anyone who has ever questioned the system's fallibility and serves as a reminder that the fight for justice is never truly over. An innocent life stolen. The journey of Kirsten Lobato. In the desert city of Las Vegas, where fortunes rise and fall in the blink of an eye, Kirsten Lobato's life took a devastating turn. At just 18 years old, she was accused of a gruesome crime she didn't commit, the brutal murder of a homeless man. What followed was a tale of misjudgment, misplaced priorities, and an un. It was 2001 when Kirsten first found herself in handcuffs. The murder had shocked the city, and the police were under pressure to find someone to blame. Kirsten, a young woman with no history of violence, became the prime suspect. Her supposed confession to defending herself against an attempted assault months earlier was twisted into an admission of guilt for a crime she had no connection to. The evidence against her was flimsy at best. No physical evidence linked her to the crime. Witnesses could place her hours away with her family at the time of the murder. But the system was not in her favor. A jury convicted her of first-degree murder, and Kirsten was sentenced to a staggering 45 years in prison. For the next 16 years, Kirsten's world was reduced to the gray walls of a prison cell. Outside, her life moved on without her. Family members grew older. Opportunities faded. And the life she had dreamed of was replaced by an unrelenting battle for freedom. Yet, Kirsten never gave up. She held on to her innocence like a lifeline, refusing to let the injustice define her. The tide began to turn when new evidence surfaced. A team of attorneys and advocates uncovered the undeniable truth. Kirsten could not have committed the crime. The victim's time of death, established through forensic evidence, proved that Kirsten was miles away with her family. The case against her, once bolstered by speculation and weak testimony, collapsed under the weight of facts. In 2017, Kirsten stood before the court once more. This time, the outcome was different. The judge reviewed the new evidence, and the decision was clear. The conviction was overturned. As the words were spoken, Kirsten stepped into the sunlight as a free woman for the first time in nearly 2 decades. Freedom, however, came with a heavy price. Kirsten had missed the pivotal years of her youth. She had endured a system that treated her not as an individual, but as a case file to be closed. The Las Vegas Police Department now faces a lawsuit filed by Kirsten, an effort to hold those responsible for her wrongful conviction accountable. Today, Kirsten Lobato is a symbol of resilience. Her story is not just one of injustice, but of the strength it takes to confront a system designed to suppress dissent. It is a reminder of how easily the machinery of justice can go astray and how critical it is to question, to verify, and to fight for the truth. For those who have witnessed the shifting tides of American justice over the decades, Kirsten's story resonates deeply. It speaks to a broader reality that justice, while ideal in theory, is only as strong as the people who demand its accountability. As Kirsten rebuilds her life, she carries the scars of her ordeal, but also the hope that her story will inspire change. For anyone who values fairness, her journey is a poignant reminder of what can happen when the system fails and what it means to never stop fight.